The Coleman family, one of the darkest stories ever.
Got some breaking news right now out of the state of Illinois as authorities are hunting for a killer of a mother there and her two young boys. On the mother you see there, Sheri Coleman, and her two boys. They were found, neighbors say they were strangled, found inside their home that morning.
The Coleman family from Illinois was a completely normal, seemingly happy family. Once the married couple and their two well-mannered sons loved each other dearly. They had a nice house, prayed together every evening, and regularly attended church. But in the fall of 2008, the Coleman family suddenly began receiving threatening letters and emails. Someone seemed to despise them and wanted to kill them. But before the police could track down the sender of the messages, a gruesome crime took place in the Coleman's house. Yet no one could have imagined the shocking truth hidden behind this crime. The Coleman family consisted of 34-year-old father Christopher, his wife Sheri, and their two sons Garrett and Gavin. Together, they lived in a large house in the suburbs of Waterloo, Illinois. Christopher traveled a lot because he worked for TV preacher Joyce Meyer. Joyce Meyer is a devout Christian who travels across the USA, giving speeches and leading church services. She was accompanied, among others, by Christopher Coleman, who worked as her head of security. Christopher loved his job, especially because it allowed him to travel and see new cities. But his job was also very well paid, which enabled the Colemans to afford a luxurious lifestyle. Faith also played an important role in Sheri's life, and so the couple prayed together with their sons every evening and attended church regularly. Sheri and Christopher seemed very happy, but then their peaceful life was suddenly turned upside down. On November 14, 2008, Christopher found a threatening email in his inbox for the first time. It read, "Time is running out for you and your family." In the days and weeks that followed, many more emails arrived. The sender had a problem with Joyce Meyer, the preacher Christopher worked for. He wrote that everything Joyce preached was nonsense and that Christopher would have to pay the price if he didn't quit his job. The emails, sent from destroychris@gmail.com, became more aggressive and threatening. Because of this, Christopher eventually turned to the police. As a result, the Coleman family was placed under police protection. In the following months, more and more emails arrived, but Christopher and Sheri felt safe thanks to the police and continued with their daily lives. On April 27, 2009, Christopher received one last threatening email. "This is my final message. Your worst nightmare will soon come true." After that, everything went quiet. Sheri hoped that the nightmare was finally over and that they could continue living their lives as usual. But her hope would not come true. It would be shattered. It was the early morning of May 5, 2009, when Christopher called his neighbor, a police officer who was aware of the threats, from a nearby gym. He told him that he had left early for his workout and now couldn't reach his family. Normally, Sheri would already be awake at this hour. The neighbor had installed a camera at Christopher's driveway, but found nothing suspicious in the recordings. Even the police patrol that had passed by shortly before reported no unusual incidents at the Coleman's house. Nevertheless, the neighbor informed the police station and then went to the Coleman's house together with other officers. From the outside, everything seemed calm and peaceful, so the men were not prepared for what was hidden behind the facade. In red spray paint, phrases like "now you are punished" and "I'm watching you" covered almost every wall of the house. It looked as if someone had made their threat a reality. And indeed, the officers found Sheri and her sons dead in their beds. They had been strangled. Sheri showed clear signs of a struggle. Whoever had killed her, she had fought back fiercely. Shortly after an ambulance and more police cars arrived at the crime scene, Christopher also showed up. The officers informed the worried father that his wife and children had been found dead. But Christopher didn't ask what had happened, nor did he try to push past the officers to get inside his house. Instead, camera footage showed him walking calmly into his front yard, sitting on the ground and beginning to cry. While reporters and bystanders expressed their sympathy, the police found his behavior strange. To them, his tears and grief seemed forced, and the way he went to the front yard felt staged. But that wasn't all. The paramedics who attended to him noticed deep scratches on his arm. When they confronted him about it, he explained that he had punched the wall of the ambulance in anger, causing the injuries, but his wounds didn't match his story. From that moment on, Christopher Coleman became the prime suspect in the murder of his own family.
We already know what happened. We need to know why it happened.
I know what to tell you.
Listen, no, you do know what to tell us.
No, I don't.
Come on, Chris. She was not alive when you left. The children were not alive when you left. You know that's true, and I know that's true.
No, it just...
What happened?
Nothing happened.
What was going on in your life, Chris? Because I can't buy what you're saying. The physical evidence does not lie, Chris. It does not. She was not alive when you left, period. The physical evidence does not lie, man.
What do you want me to tell you?
The truth.
I'm telling you the truth.
How did we get to this point? That's what I need to know.
The police immediately began investigating him. They reviewed the surveillance footage from the house's driveway once again. There, they saw Christopher leaving the house about an hour before calling his neighbor from the gym. This made the investigators suspicious, as the autopsies of Sheri and her sons revealed that they had been killed hours before Christopher left. By the time they were found, bodies were already cold and stiff. Christopher was interrogated and confronted with the evidence, but he denied everything and insisted that his family was still alive when he left the house. He also pointed to the threats he had received in recent months. At this point, the investigators hit a dead end, but they found it strange that although Christopher was the one being threatened in the emails, he was the only one who had survived in the end. So they examined his computer and phone and made a shocking discovery. First, the police checked the IP address of the emails sent from destroychris@gmail.com. They found that all the threatening emails had been sent from inside the Coleman's house. But that was far from the only thing that strengthened their suspicion against Christopher, killing his own family. It gets even worse. Hey guys, huge thanks for your amazing support over the past few weeks. We're slowly becoming a community. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for everything. Now, on to the shocking case. On his phone, police found messages from a woman named Tara Lentz, a childhood friend of Sheri, who now worked as a waitress at a cocktail bar nearby. The more investigators read through the messages between Christopher and Tara, the clearer it became that the two had been having an affair since October 2008, exactly 1 month before the threats began. For months, Christopher had used his job as an excuse to stay away from home longer and meet with Tara. Sheri was used to her husband traveling frequently, so she didn't find it unusual when Christopher was gone for a weekend. The police found numerous videos and messages in which Christopher and Tara swore eternal love to each other and spoke about their future, marrying each other. Again and again they fantasized, through messages, about the happy marriage they would soon have. But Christopher was married to Sheri, and that was a big problem for him. He wanted to be with Tara, but that would mean getting a divorce. And his boss, Joyce Meyer, was extremely religious and strongly opposed divorce and affairs. In the past, some of Christopher's colleagues had even been fired after getting divorced. Christopher was afraid that the same fate would await him, so he kept stalling Tara and postponing the divorce. But at some point, Tara got tired of waiting. In April 2009, she gave Christopher an ultimatum. Either he would divorce Sheri by May 4th, or she would break up with him and make their affair public. Christopher assured Tara that this time, he would really get a divorce. When the deadline arrived, Tara called Christopher. He told her that the divorce papers were ready and that he would give them to his wife the next day. But instead, just one day after the deadline, the bodies of Sheri, Garrett, and Gavin were found. For the investigators, the motive behind the crime was now clear. Further investigations reinforced this theory. The detectives checked Sheri's phone. On it, they found messages she had sent to her friends. She told them that Christopher wanted to file for divorce and was becoming very aggressive. He had yelled at her and blamed her for ruining his career. He said that she and the children had destroyed his life. Sheri also wrote that she was afraid Christopher might harm her. By the time of discovering this, the DNA found under Sheri's fingernails had been analyzed. It belonged to Christopher. The final piece of evidence, which probably wasn't even needed at this point, was a credit card statement from Christopher. It showed that he had purchased red spray paint, the same spray paint used to mark the threats inside the house. Shortly after, a neighbor of Christopher's contacted the police. Concerned citizens had placed a memorial on the street where the Colemans lived, leaving candles and flowers. The neighbor reported that he had seen Christopher throwing the flowers and candles into the trash. After putting all these pieces together, there was no doubt left. Christopher Coleman had brutally murdered his wife and 2 sons because he didn't want a divorce. Still, the police waited, gathering as much evidence as possible to ensure that no loophole would allow him to escape conviction in court. Finally, the final autopsy determined the time of death to be around 3 a.m. Christopher himself had stated that he was at home at that time. On May 19th, Christopher Coleman was arrested.
Very emotional moment when the foreperson read the verdict, guilty on all 3 counts.
He continued to plead not guilty. The emails had been sent from his computer, but he claimed he had been hacked. He insisted that his family was still alive when he left the house, but the jury wasn't convinced. Christopher was found guilty in court and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
There's no words. The only thing that I have to say at this point is me and my family, our goal is to keep my daughter's memory alive, my grandchildren's memories alive, and continue doing things that my daughter has been doing down the road. And if we can save one person from being abused or done what was done to my daughter, that would just make us feel wonderful to be able to do that.
After the verdict was announced, the prosecution made a final statement. He felt his little son slowly die in his hands. Anyone who values life so little deserves this punishment. And with that, we've reached the end of today's video. Christopher Coleman murdered his wife and his 2 young sons to keep his affair secret and avoid losing his job, the job that funded his luxurious lifestyle. It's only fortunate that he covered his tracks so poorly, ensuring that justice was served for his selfish and cold-blooded crime. What do you think about this case? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, a comment, and/or subscribe. With just a couple of clicks and a few keystrokes, you can greatly support this channel. Thank you in advance, and thank you for watching. Here you can find the story of the craziest twins ever. A story so unpredictable it seems almost fake. See you soon. Stay safe.